No, this is not correct at all. In fact, the current left that I'm critical of is actually a departure from the old school Marxist, universalist, class-based socialist theory that I am still sympathetic to in favor of a new left, post-colonial or post-modern left-wing theory. And one of the big differences between this old school Marxist school of thought is the idea of universalism and being pro-working class in favor of the working class would unite all of us regardless of our nationality, identities, and everything else. Marxists were always internationalist. They were never nationalist. In fact, they were very, very critical of national movements, to where post-colonial theory is a critique of old school colonial thought in favor of alternative perspectives, mostly of the colonized. And what ends up happening is oftentimes they end up just taking the opposite view of what the mainstream Western perspective is. And actually, a lot of them are quite critical of Marx, Engels, and Lenin. In fact, they consider them just another Western white thinker. And while some of them still identify as communist or Marxist-Leninist, it's very clear when you actually analyze them further that they don't actually know anything that Marx, Engels, Lenin, Trotsky ever wrote. Now, Angela Davis, she's in a bit of a different category because Angela Davis is actually part of that departure that happened in the 60s and 70s with the new left. But Marx himself, Karl Marx, he was a Jew. And he was actually discriminated against for being Jewish. Bakunin once said that the Jews control the right with Rothschild and the left with Karl Marx. Jean-Pierre Proudhon also wrote genuinely genocidal anti-Semitic conspiracy theories. Marx has been accused of anti-Semitism before, mostly on his work on the Jewish question. However, I think that's largely unfair because if anything, he actually calls for the self-determination of Jews. You could argue he was maybe somewhat self-hating thanks to the horribly anti-Semitic attitudes of Europe during the 19th century, but calling him anti-Semitic is unfair. Leon Trotsky himself was also a Jew that faced persecution. I personally don't see how people think he was anti-Semitic. And Vladimir Lenin, it was later revealed that he did hold Jewish ancestry, and he actually spoke out against Tsarist anti-Semitism in favor of uniting Soviets and Russians against the Tsar and not against the Jews. And Joseph Stalin would actually censor a lot of Lenin's writings that were against such anti-Semitism because Stalin himself probably was anti-Semitic. But here's the thing. Why is the post-colonial left anti-Semitic? Well, there's a variety of reasons, but the most simple explanation of that is this: Islam. They see Islam as a non-Western alternative to Christianity, but also to atheism and materialism, which is what Marx professed. And in Islam, anti-Semitism is pretty natural. It's extremely common. And it's much easier for them to have these anti-Semitic conspiracy theory worldviews when they embrace the idea that Islam is a legitimate alternative to Western theology or Western rationalism and science. So no, it's not because of Marxism. It's because of the post-colonial theory and Islamism.